Hello, today I'm going to talk you through a movement that we call Seaweed. A little bit of a weird one, but it feels so good through the spine. It's basically a sequential movement from side to side, a sequential movement meaning one vertebra at a time. And we don't do all that much in the side to side sort of region. We've got various different planes that we can move through in terms of our body movement. We can move forwards and backwards, which we do a lot of. We can move around in a rotational capacity, which I've talked a lot about so far this year. And we can move in this plane from side to side, things like a cartwheel or a side bend. So it's basically a side bend, the seaweed, but it's a sequential side bend, meaning that it gets each individual vertebra moving a little bit. So it just feels delicious for the spine. So you can do it in lots of different positions. We'll start with a standing version. So I've got my feet about twice as wide as my hips, nice wide stance. I've got my knees slightly bent, and then I'm basically imagining myself as a piece of seaweed tethered to the ocean bed. So my feet are grounded and stay firmly down on the floor, and then I start to imagine that I'm being billowed from side to side by the ocean current, and I'm just responding quite freely and fluidly to that side to side current. So if I imagine that I'm moving to the left, it's almost as if the waist leads the way, and then the ribs move, and then the upper body moves, and then the shoulders, then the neck, then the head is last. And then I want to keep that head over to the left side whilst I meanwhile move the waist, the ribs, the upper back, the shoulders, the neck, and then the head last over to that right side. Keeping the head over to the right, I then start to travel again from the waist first, ribs, upper back, shoulders, neck, head to the left, and then to the right with the waist, ribs, shoulders, neck, head. So piece by piece, and your head is always the last thing to move. So you get this lovely freedom through your neck as well as through the rest of the spine. And it's easy enough to do it quickly. And as I do that standing, I'm transferring my weight from one foot to the other. So I'm bending the right knee as I travel over to the right. I'm bending the left knee as I travel over to the left. But what we often do is we amalgamate that movement within other parts of a Pilates class. So it might be that you're kneeling or sitting, and you can do exactly the same thing. Or maybe you're sitting on the floor, legs outstretched. If that's a stretch that you know is more difficult for you, you might park yourself on a couple of blocks to give the pelvis a bit of lift. And then again, we're just billowing the spine from side to side. So it's quite a relaxed, feel-good kind of movement. And we want to pay increasingly more and more attention to the detail of it. I mean, think about the spine. We've got 33 individual vertebrae, 33 pieces from head to tail. And often it's easy to feel that the spine is moving in clumps, so sort of bottom, middle, top. Whereas actually we really want to try and visualize each individual piece moving one by one. So it might be a movement that you really slow down and become just that little bit more discerning about exactly where you're stuck or a little bit stiffer, and where you're perhaps moving a little bit more freely. I know for myself, I certainly don't move perfectly evenly on the two sides. So one last version I'll show you is from child's pose. We do this quite frequently in classes. So child's pose with your knees nice and wide and your arms stretched out in front of you, so you're lengthening your spine. Just make sure that your head isn't dropped onto the floor. So your scruff of your neck and your head are lifting a little bit, so you feel like your spine is nice and long, roughly horizontal. And then from there, I've got the same feeling, the same visualization of being a piece of seaweed. My bottom is tethered down to the ocean bed, and this time as the current drifts me from side to side, I'm doing exactly the same motion but facing the floor. So I'll just show you that from this angle in case you can see a little bit better from this angle. So one piece at a time. I've got my hands nice and wide apart so that my shoulders can stay wide and I've got room to move. And your hips might move a little bit, but they're not moving much. So just keep those hips nice and heavy and relaxed and enjoy that lovely feeling of movement from side to side through the spine. Remember, the head is the last thing to move each time. The movement starts from the waist or the pelvis and just ripples its way up the spine, one vertebra at a time. So that's your seaweed. If you've ever wondered what a seaweed is, I hope you enjoy it. See you next time.